G'day everyone, it's Matt. Welcome to the September Relive Adelaide podcast. Once again, Adrian and I caught up in Adelaide. This time around, we're discussing some of the exciting announcements about the Adelaide 500 and the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. Speaking of which, the dates for the Adelaide Motorsport Festival have been announced. So, let's get into the news. So it's been confirmed the Adelaide Motorsport Festival will be on Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of March 2023. That's the week before the 2023 Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, and Adrian and I will go through some of the announcements during the podcast. In Rymal Park, electrical and water upgrade works are still underway. Check out the Relive Adelaide YouTube channel for the interview that I did with City of Adelaide Project Manager James Finnis about what is happening. In Victoria Park, major upgrade works are underway on the track. As well as the upgrades in Victoria Park, there are also upgrades happening around other areas of the track. The upgrades will include curb replacements, track upgrades and asphalt resurfacing. The works are on now and expected to be completed in early October 2022, weather permitting. Check out the show notes below for the link if you would like more information. And another event coming to Adelaide is the 2022 World Rose Convention, the 27th of October until the 3rd of November. If you'd like more information, visit wrc22.aomevents.com.au. The link is, of course, also below. And what do roses, yes, the flower, have to do with the Adelaide Street Circuit? Well, in Rymal Park, there is the Rymal Park Rose Garden, one of the finest rose gardens within the Adelaide City Parklands, and it's free to visit. And finally, the Adelaide Rally event finale is now at Victoria Park. That'll be on Sunday, November the 27th. From the Adelaide Rally website, our 2022 location has moved to Victoria Park, aka the Adelaide 500 track. And here there will be the final stage of the event on a section of the Adelaide 500 circuit, complete with grandstands and track barrier systems in place. Expect grandstand viewing of the action, car displays, music, food, wine, and a custom and performance car show and shine. Plus, Formula One demonstrations, heritage touring cars, and a sampling of the vehicles you will see at the 2023 Adelaide Motorsport Festival, all driven in a spirited manner on track in a 1-hour spectacular. So that's Sunday, the 27th of November, the event finale for the Adelaide Rally, and it's free. There's plenty to see and do when visiting Adelaide, and since starting this project earlier in the year, it still continues to amaze me how many events and hidden gems there are around the precinct of the Adelaide Street Circuit. So let's get into the city and continue on with the podcast with Adrian. So here we are back in Adelaide. Adrian, welcome.
Thank you.
Been well?
Yes, been busy, but keeping well. And we're getting closer and closer to the Adelaide 500 return.
Yep. Today we're just going to run through and digest all of the announcements from the Adelaide 500 and also the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. So it's exciting that the Adelaide Motorsport Festival is coming back, just with a slight little date change. So first of all, we'll crack on to Adrian's quiz. So last month we had the question in the quiz: who was the F1 driver who raced in all 11 Adelaide Grand Prix races? Had some guesses on the Facebook. One of them was Damon Hill. So Damon Hill, is it Adrian?
No, not quite. Actually, he was a late starter. He only did 3 in the end, 93 to 95. And obviously he won the last one, but no, not quite.
What about Michael Schumacher?
No, again, we think of him as sort of that he was around longer than he actually was, but he started in Adelaide in 91. So he was sort of, the back end of the Adelaide era.
And a few for Gerhard Berger.
Yes, that's the right one. He was there from 85 to 95, raced for a few different teams. He won it a couple of times and, only driver to do all 11, which is, pretty impressive. Just shows his longevity in the sport.
And he's still around on the grid today. You see him floating around.
Yeah, he runs the DTM, the German touring car, sports car championship, and pretty active in motorsport still, and very involved, and was probably, never really that sort of, championship contender, but he was always, competitive.
Yeah. So for this month's question in the quiz, we'll give the answer at the end of the podcast. Adrian, what have you got for us?
So which team won the first and last Adelaide Grand Prix? So the same team won in 85 and 95. Which team? Which team?
Okay, we'll come on to that at the end of the podcast. So which team won the first and the last Adelaide Grand Prix? One of the things I didn't mention in the news segment, because at the moment it's just a bit of paddock talk, but I just run through a few of the things that might be in this person's resume. So heavily involved in Australian supercars, also Rally Australia, pretty sure Formula 3, Formula 2, and also race director up until the end of last year for Formula 1. I'm, of course, talking about Michael Massey. Bit of talk around that he might be joining the South Australian Motorsport Board. What do you think about that, Adrian? Good idea?
Yeah, it seems to be linked to his potential role in the Supercar Commission. Obviously, Supercars Commission sort of runs the sport in terms of the day-to-day rules and management and things. So it makes sense for the South Australian Motorsport Board to have a Supercars link, given the Adelaide 500 is their big event. So, yeah, absolutely makes sense. Obviously, he would have learnt a lot through his role at the FIA and in Formula 1, and he's obviously a Australian boy coming home, so it's good to bring that experience home, and it's a good way to sort of tap in and sort of for the South Australian Motorsport Board to sort of bring someone with that pedigree in.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think it would be a fantastic idea. I think it would be a huge asset for the South Australian Motorsport Board. If Michael Massey joined us, I couldn't believe that they were even just little old Adelaide, South Australia, and now we're getting somebody of the calibre of a previous Formula 1 race director. It's great.
Yeah, I think it shows, all the sort of indications from the Adelaide 500 and the board is that sort of they're aiming big. It seems like it's got that feel of what it used to be, so it's good to bring those people with that sort of experience and pedigree, and especially if he does sort of, end up leading the Supercars Commission, it's a great tie-in, and it sort of really cements the Adelaide 500's place as, a marquee Supercars event.
Yeah. One of the other things that I've been having on the burner is putting together a little map of where all of the handprints are along Hutt Street. So not only are there handprints from previous Formula 1 drivers, there's also some handprints from supercars drivers down there as well. So put that all together in a digital format at the moment, so that'll be up online. Please check that out on the Facebook page. If there's any that I've missed, please let us know, but I think we do have the list pretty much together. Once the list is all 100% correct and nobody has found any hiding, we'll put together a little brochure and then hopefully distribute them along Hutt Street, just in some of the cafes and restaurants. Just so if tourists are coming from overseas and they want to see what's here from the Adelaide Grand Prix era, they can either jump online and look at the digital map or pick up one of those brochures and go for a little walk. When I was walking down Hutt Street, at the moment, without any guidance towards where they are, it is very much like hide and seek trying to spot them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things we've discussed previously that Adelaide hasn't done a great job in remembering its sort of Formula 1 Grand Prix legacy and even its Adelaide 500 legacy. And, those handprints are really one of the few things we've got. And they're a sort of almost like a remnant. They've just been left there because, it's almost not worth taking them down, and you'd think it wouldn't have surprised us if they were taken down, but it's great they're there, and I think it just adds that extra little element of reminder of people that these great names raced here once, so hopefully they stay and they're a permanent fixture, and it's great to sort of guide people towards there, so when tourists come to Adelaide and they know the city through the Grand Prix, there's something at least they can go see.
Yep. So everyone, please jump on the Facebook page and have a look at that link to the Google Maps and where all of those handprints are. If there's any that I've missed, please let me know. And if you're listening along on YouTube, just have a look down. There'll be a link below as well. So we'll come on to our main topic. We've had the announcements from the upcoming Adelaide 500. So that's on the 1st to the 4th of December. It's not long away now, Adrian. There's massive works going on at Victoria Park, also Wakefield Road as well. Not long to go, Adrian, but all of the announcements so far have been pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work to get there. I mean, let's be honest, it was a very late announcement to get it happen, and it's pretty incredible to think that it's happening for December when the election was in March. And obviously a big turnaround given it hasn't happened for the last few years, and, infrastructure sold off and the track's sort of not been in a great state, and, the COVID testing site wouldn't have been good for Victoria Park. So, I don't envy them being involved in the organisation of the event. It's definitely a big job, but they seem, it's all guns blazing, and it seems like it's going to happen, and all indications are it's going to be a 500 as, what we remember it from, a few years back, and, big scale. So it's all positive. It's just, very late in the day, but it seems like, when you have that backing of government and council and all that, things tend to happen.
You get it done, yeah. And, not only the track needs looking at and the track needs upgrading, all of the smaller things as well. There's so much to look at. All of the footings for the crossover bridges for pedestrians, they all need to be looked at by engineers to make sure they're still up to spec. So, yeah, a lot of work happening, and fantastic to see it all happening as well. So it's, just great and well done to state government and the local council for getting on with it. Ticket pricing. So tickets have been rolled back to what they were about 10 years ago. I wouldn't say, ridiculously cheap is a good term to use, but reasonable. Those ticket prices are really reasonable, aren't they?
Yeah, that was the announcement that shocked me the most, and that sort of came out of nowhere, and I think that just shows how serious they are about getting this event back up and running and getting people through the gate, and I think they really want to restart with a bang and get a big crowd, and that's pretty massive. When you think of inflation and the price of everything nowadays, to take it back 10 years is huge. So I think that just shows the signal of intent from everyone involved to get it back and get big numbers. And I think it might be sort of compensating for the fact that it is very late in the day, so people might not be organising things, but at least this gives them that sort of temptation to get back in. And so, I can't see why there wouldn't be a big crowd given the momentum behind the event and just that cost. It's, 10 years ago is a long time when you think about it.
Yeah. And I guess it's one of those things as well, let's use some small numbers, but do you sell 10 tickets at $2 or do you sell 30 tickets for $1? It's going to get those ticket sales up as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a massive site. Once you're there and you see all the grandstands and things, there's a lot of people to get in there. And, you noticed in the last few years where the crowds were a bit down, the sort of empty seats in the grandstand, it made a difference, and it changed the feel of the event when you compared it to previous years when it was just, full. So I think that's really the motivation behind that. Get the people in, get it back seeing. So then, from, 2023 and 24, it's sort of back to where it was. The numbers are there, and they can sort of, get back to more of an equivalent price because there's the demand to be back at the event.
Yeah. Also, the announcement of the major sponsor in Valo. Fantastic major sponsor on board.
Yeah, South Australian company. Obviously, they're involved in lighting and things, so sort of there's a link there, and it's great. Events need those sort of name your right sponsors. They help, pay for it all. Yep. It was a big question mark. Obviously, some people still do refer to it as Clipsal because of all those years Clipsal as title sponsor. So, Valo seems like they're locked in, and it just makes sense, and it's great fit. So it's a good sign for the event that has that overline, and especially a sponsor that's unique to the event. There's, if it was like a supercars sponsor, or it might have had a different feel, but this seems like it's unique to Adelaide, which is another good sign. Yeah, and the Valo 500 has a nice ring to it as well, doesn't it? Yeah, pretty simple. Not too many letters for all the branding and things, and easy for people like me to remember. And it rolls off the tongue. I think, as we said, Clipsal, that recognition is still there, incredibly, and Superloop sort of was starting to get there before it sort of, the event went away. So hopefully it doesn't take too long for this to sort of, pick up. Yeah. The Repco Supercars Championship is obviously the major draw card of the weekend. So coming up, Auckland is next weekend. Shane van Gisbergen is currently leading the championship by 500 points. Will we have the job done by Adelaide? Yeah, it seems so. There's only 4 rounds left, and that's a big margin. And if you think of it in Formula 1 terms, he's in a Max Verstappen type, situation where he's just running away with the championship. Both Red Bull drivers, ironically. So I think likely the championship will be over. It's a shame because that would have added extra dimension to the Adelaide 500 if there was a championship on the line, but if we think back to the Adelaide Grand Prix, it was only 2 of the 11 years where the championship was on the line. So it while it was great and they were the races that everyone remembers, it didn't ultimately sort of, keep people away. So it is a shame, but it's just what happens in motorsport sometimes when one driver dominates. But hopefully in future years there's a championship battle on the line.
With those ticket prices for $20, you can get access to the pit paddock, which is the section behind the pits where you've got a great chance of meeting the drivers. I think if Adelaide doesn't come down to a championship decider, everybody in the paddock will be a lot more relaxed rather than everybody being on edge and wanting to, just focus all of their attention onto the race. They'll have a lot more time to spend, with the fans, do autographs, photos, and not to say that they won't think about the race, but they'll just be able to spend so much more time with the spectators and it'll just add to that extra experience.
Yeah, I mean, I work in supercars. It's my day-to-day job, and I've been to a few season finales in Sydney and Newcastle and the like, and it always has that end of season, end of term feeling. So there's sort of a different vibe, especially when the championship's not on the line. I remember some championship deciders in Sydney where it was pretty tense, but the ones where there wasn't, it was sort of, more of a relaxed vibe. So I think Adelaide can really tap into that, and it'll help differentiate it. I think when was at the start of the season, it had its own sort of feel. This will be very different, but in its own good ways. I think it's sort of, we're not losing too much by being at the start, and I think we're gaining a lot by being at the end.
Yeah. So if you are heading along to the Adelaide 500, I urge you to, if you can, grab one of those paddock passes so you can get out the back of the pits, see all of the drivers, all of the team owners walking around. You get to see the huge transport as well, just see all the action going on behind the pits. When myself and my wife went along, we grabbed one, took our own lunch in, which, whether the Adelaide 500 want you to do that or not, or they want you to purchase food on site, not too sure, but if you want to, you can take your own food along. And we just sat out the back of the pit paddock, had our cheese and biscuits, watching all the drivers and team owners walk past. And, when we saw, for example, Dick Johnson walking towards us, you'd jump up, have a quick photo taken. More than happy to chat with you as well. It was a very, very friendly atmosphere. So, yeah, if you can, grab one of those pit paddock passes for only $20. The support races as well there, Adrian. So we've got Dunlop Super 2 Series, Fanatec GT World Challenge Australia, powered by AWS, S5000 Tasman Series, Golf Western Touring Car Masters. I'll take a guess, you might be looking forward to the S5000s heading along?
Yeah, it's good to have high-powered open wheelers back on the Adelaide Street Circuit. I think that's going to be the highlight of those. It's also a point of difference from previous Adelaide 500s. The other categories have been there and been a mainstay, whereas the S5000 will be new to the track and, pretty impressive in person, fast, loud.
Yeah.
They could be challenging for a lap record. So I think it's great that they're there, and but just in saying that, the depth of that support category sort of lineup is pretty impressive. Again, that's what we expect from an Adelaide 500. It's 4 days, it's a lot of track action, different cars. You've got your historic element, you've got your sort of Super 2s, up and coming drivers, you've got your GT cars, open wheelers. So all round, that's pretty impressive lineup, and I think that'll just help bring the event back to what it was.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, are the Aussie racing cars coming back? So they're those miniature supercars. Their season's actually finished for this year, but they may be on the draw card for next year.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where, it was pretty late in the day, the event coming back, so some of the championships had their budgets and calendars already allocated, so I think for next year there may be more added. So, considering, how late it all was, it's impressive they have the categories that they have. So yeah. I guess we'll see moving forward.
Airtime, FMX and BMX and the Hot Wheels stunt team for the off and some more on-track action. It sounds like they've done a fantastic job with putting together the categories for this year, but if this year's going to be good, next year can only just be even better.
Yeah, I think especially with the year planning, having the event back, there'll be some momentum. Categories will want to be involved, sponsors will want to be involved. So, as we've said, it's impressive they've gotten what they've gotten in a sort of what will be a 6 to 10 month turnaround, and then they can only really grow from the year, moving forward. So, It's a great start. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be at this level already. I thought it might have been like more of an interim gap year where they sort of just got it back up and running and sort of, it was a bit of, baby steps, but seems like it's all guns blazing.
Yeah. The concerts as well. So the concert stage has actually been moved back to within King Rodney Park. So that's sort of, if you're looking at the track map up the top near Bartels Road or the Brock Straight. Was the concert oval near the Heritage Grandstand?
Yes, the last couple of years it moved to Victoria Park, and basically in front of the Heritage Grandstand, and sort of if you're at the track, think behind the pits across the track. There were various reasons for that. I think logistics in terms of moving it away from a school run oval. I think it was also, remember this was when the Fringe was on, so I think there was wanting to move away from where the Fringe was in that sort of east end to sort of its own unique area. But the general consensus was it didn't really work. It changed the dynamic of the event. So I think, I was at the launch, and it sort of, that announcement got some cheers from the people there. So I think it's a popular one. I think it was one of those things that people felt like they weren't really being listened to when that was changed. So it seems like it's the right thing to do. And again, it's what people know.
Yeah.
So it's good to deliver what they know and what they expect. So it seems like the sort of the way they're operating is to bring it back to how it was, which is, all part of that, and moving the concerts back makes sense.
Yeah. The concert lineups are pretty great, to be honest with you. So on the Friday night, we've got Lime. Is it Cordial or Cordial? I'm not too familiar with that.
I'm probably not the right person to ask that, unfortunately.
So the presets, Baker Boy, Teenage Jones, and supported by bands on track. Saturday, Jimmy Barnes, Icehouse, Noiseworks, supported again by bands on track. Sunday, The Killers. If you were to head along to one of those nights, Adrian, what one would you pick? Well,
I've been told I'm being taken to see The Killers on Sunday night by someone I work with in the industry. They're dragging me there. It's probably not my thing. Obviously I sort of tend to, I'm working at the event, so I tend to sort of hang around and work and then get back home. So, but I've been told I must attend. This is the same person who dragged me to see Kiss when they were performing at Adelaide 500, which was... That was an eye-opener. I think I'll be there to see The Killers. But, pretty impressive. Again, each night has its own feel.
Yeah.
Each night has its own sort of unique attraction. Again, that's what you'd expect from an Adelaide 500. Going back, in previous years, it seemed like it was getting less and less, and each night was less. But that's pretty impressive. And they have their big international headline act, which is going to get people in who aren't motorsport fans. So, again... that's a win all round, I'd say.
Coming back to the ticket prices, so the Saturday for concession $79, standard ticket for general admissions $89. So for $89, you obviously get in, get to see all of the action on track and off track, get the concerts. Saturday night, Jimmy Barnes, Icehouse, Noiseworks. Great value for money, and that's what I'm going to be putting my money on, is that Saturday night, especially I reckon when Noiseworks comes out. They are just going to set the place on fire. Saturday night's the night, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. You can always tell attending these events when, when you're leaving the track, the amount of people that are coming in. And you definitely notice, those years when it was like Red Hot Chili Peppers or Robbie Williams, or there was always that big lineup coming in as sort of the motorsport people were leaving. So I think we'll see that again on probably the Saturday and the Sunday night. Even the Friday, I think that's, a different crowd. From people you'd expect to go to an Adelaide 500, and that's the whole point. That's why they're doing the concerts. So it's more than just motorsport. So I think it's credit to them for pulling this off. Again, that they didn't have much. I mean, the election could have gone the other way, and we're not talking about this event happening at all. So to go from nothing to that lineup is pretty impressive.
I think that's the overall scary part, is if the election had gone the other way, there would be no Adelaide 500, and coming on to our topic in a moment, no Adelaide Motorsport Festival, motorsport from Victoria Park and the Adelaide Street Circuit. I don't even like to talk about it. It's way too scary. But yeah, that could have just been gone altogether.
Well, I think it was this time last year, the discussion was about tearing up Victoria Park. So, unfortunately, that seems how polarising this has all become, and hopefully as part of this process with the Adelaide 500 and Adelaide Motorsport Festival and Adelaide Rally coming back, that they just become, cemented in, and that's it. And we're not discussing them as, whether they're coming or going. It sort of needs to get back to the stage where they just happen because they're worth it.
So Adelaide 500, 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th of December. So the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, the date has been announced. It was originally billed up until the announcement as being a week prior to the Adelaide 500. But the 2023 Melbourne F1 Grand Prix got announced, and later that morning Adelaide Motorsport Festival said that they are back. So the Melbourne Formula One Grand Prix is on the 30th of March till the Sunday, the 2nd of April 2023. Adelaide Motorsport Festival is a week prior, Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of March. That is an absolutely perfect date to be a week before Melbourne.
Yes, I think when all these events were announced, I think I, along with a lot of people, assumed they might be paired up together, the Adelaide Motorsport Festival and the Adelaide 500, because the Adelaide 500 was moving to November, December, and that's when the Adelaide Motorsport Festival was always around. But obviously, when you think of it logistically, if you have all the Adelaide 500 infrastructure there, it's going to change the dynamic of the Adelaide Motorsport Festival to have all these big grandstands in this pit facility. It wouldn't really work. So to move them away from each other makes total sense, and to have it the week before the Grand Prix, it's pretty obvious. Then it opens up the door for Formula One people to pop in a week early to Australia and visit Adelaide and be part of the festival. So great date. I think it's going to really work. I think it's a great time of year. Has that sort of time difference from the Adelaide 500, so I think it's a win-win.
I think that's one of the big things as well, is if you had the Adelaide Motorsport Festival in December and you're wanting to attract, sure, they might be long retired F1 drivers who might come over, but if you're wanting to attract people that still hang around the sport, we are a long way from Europe, so having it a week before Melbourne, able to attract a lot more of those people still in Formula One to come over. We'll come on to that later, but yeah, fantastic with that date change. So that's Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of March. Also something pretty big and pretty important, the Adelaide Motorsport Festival announced a 4-year deal with the South Australian government. So obviously it's locked in, but there's the funding backing as well. Yeah,
it's great. It's what we need to see, not just the events coming back, but some long-term security. Obviously both Adelaide 500, Adelaide Motorsport Festival fell victim, to a lack of government funding from the previous government. So to have that back, have some security they can build on it, like we were discussing the Adelaide 500, it's important they get back up and running. And in the first year, it's sort of, this, getting back and sort of getting people to remember what it was like and attending. And then in the following years, you can really build on it. So I think it's great. It's got that long-term security, and 4-year period's great, and I think it'll only grow from there, and it'll become one of those annual things that's just part of our calendar of events every year.
Yeah. Now, I was only thinking about it the other night, but talk about the Adelaide Motorsport Festival and look back at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival and how good it was, but it actually wasn't around for all that long.
Yeah, it's. I think the same, and I think it just shows how much they squeezed into it in those sort of years and how it grew.
Absolutely.
And the growth was really organic, and it just felt like each one was, something new was there, or there was a different attraction or different cars or different drivers and things. And, it was such a shame that it was lost because of, a lack of government funding. And I think it's great that is changing, and I think it can only grow. I think the potential is massive for it to be, like a Goodwood Festival speed for Australia. And, at Victoria Park with the Grand Prix history, the Adelaide 500 history, you have the Adelaide Rally as well. We are a motoring state, so these events are important, and I think the potential there is huge.
For those who aren't familiar with the track layout of the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, so they still utilise Victoria Park. Basically, you'll head down the pit straight, go left to right through the centre chicane, and then instead of sweeping left and going down Wakefield Road, actually turn right. So there's a little bit of a hairpin right onto Wakefield Road, down Wakefield, and then you turn right and come back into that Victoria Park section of the course. So minimal traffic disruption, and also a much smaller space as well. I think with the first Adelaide Motorsport Festival, there was 4,500 people that attended. The final Adelaide Motorsport Festival got over 50,000 people, and this was only over the space of a couple of years, so huge growth. And as with most events, the first one is just getting off of the ground. and then people go away and they tell their friends, and then their friends come the next year, and then they tell more people. Word of mouth is a huge thing, and I can only just see the event just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes, especially because when towards the end there, it was really growing, and it felt like it really cemented itself, and people knew what to expect, and they were going, and then there was something different, and there was, it's not just old, Formula One cars, it's, touring cars and rally cars and drift cars. It's really sort of that sort of smorgasbord of motorsport and motoring. So I think the potential is there, the growth is there. People, it won't take them long to remember what it was. I think, most people who are involved in motorsport or motoring went along to at least one and got a taste of it. So to have it back, to have it growing, and, the potential is it's just huge, and it's great to have it back. I think for me, coming from a Grand Prix perspective, this is even more important than the Adelaide 500, because this is the remembrance of the Grand Prix that we don't have in this city. We've spoken about before the lack of, the handprints as being one of the only things that's left, and Victoria Park would have a celebration of that heritage in Victoria Park on that same, bit of track is massive, and I think that's what this state needs.
A little bit of a quote from Tim Possingham. So he is the owner and event director of the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. Quote, "Our team has been working on the content for the event, and all I can say is that the timing of our event has drawn significant international interest, whilst individuals who will be travelling from the Formula One events in the Middle East to Melbourne are compelled to arrive in Australia some 4 or 5 days earlier." End of quote. So, who could be coming from the Adelaide Grand Prix era there, Adrian?
Well, I think when you think of it, it makes sense that anyone who's working still in Formula One will be on their way from the Middle East. I believe it'll be Bahrain before, typically, and then, they'll be on their way to Australia. Australia's a long way to come from Europe, so if they're heading there, it makes sense to, as the quote says, to sort of arrive 4 or 5 days early, be part of this event. And, you watch a Formula One event nowadays, and, you see Martin Brundle commentating, and Johnny Herbert and Damon Hill and all those guys, they all raced in Adelaide. So, hopefully, we'll see some of them, and it just, it's a perfect fit. They're coming to Australia, they're coming to Melbourne, they just need to arrive 4 or 5 days earlier. Most of them do anyway, whether they squeeze in a holiday or just to get over the jet lag, and they have to sort of no point going back to Europe from the Middle East and then coming back to Australia. So that timing works well. So hopefully we see those names, and current drivers, former drivers, whoever comes. I think we saw that Adelaide Motorsport Festival, and we saw Ivan Capelli, Pierluigi Martini, Stefan Johansson. That took the event to a new level, because it was, it wasn't just about the cars, it was about the drivers. So I think that's the motivation for this date.
So Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Martin Brundle, all part of the Sky Sports UK F1 commentary team. If they came over here, that's huge exposure again for Adelaide. And if for some reason they were to record a segment to put into the, whether they would or not too sure, but if they did record a segment to put into the broadcast during the Melbourne Grand Prix, just flashing back to some of the cars, Martin Brundle, walking around those historic F1 cars, just mentioning the name Adelaide on Sky Sports UK is huge worldwide exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you pay for to get these massive events. That's why we had the Grand Prix in the first place, to put Adelaide on the map, which it did. I mean, Adelaide's still spoken about internationally through the Grand Prix. Probably not for many other reasons, but that's another story. But I think that would be incredible, and just the timing works so well, especially with those guys who have that Adelaide history. Hill won here, Brundle's on the podium here, and he raced in most of them. So they will have positive memories, and I think they would jump at the chance to come back and sort of visit the state and visit the city, and especially to be on that track. I think that's the big thing with the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, is it's using that same bit of road. It's the same, first chicane. It's the same pit straight. It's the same, where the pits were. So it's important that it's there and that heritage is celebrated.
If David Coulthard comes along, he can also see the same pit lane that he crashed into and ended his Adelaide Grand Prix. But anyway, also here, David Croft is very susceptible to a curry and also some refreshments with dinner. So what I'm going to do, can't offer much because obviously the budget for Relive Adelaide isn't huge, but if they do come over, I'll put that out there, that free meal for David Croft and the Sky Sports F1 team. Got a lot of beautiful Indian restaurants here in Adelaide, and we'll be able to put a little bit of a tab on the bar as well. So there we go. David Croft heads over. We'll put a curry dinner on for him and the Sky Sports UK F1 commentary team. Moving on, so the East End Street Party and the peak hour of power on the Friday night. So it's still to be confirmed, but that peak hour of power, if you're working in the city, finishing up work, or even if you catch the train into the city, it's fantastic to see, especially the F1 cars coming through the streets of Adelaide.
Yeah, that was always really popular. It was on Goodger Street, and obviously it was tied into the Adelaide Rally, which is now a different time of year. So the East End, it's still to be confirmed, but that's what it suggests on the website. So that would be great because the East End is where the Grand Prix was. It's where the Adelaide 500 celebrations and the parties are, and we think about those events sort of taking over the East End. We've spoken previously how when it clashed with the Fringe had that, so that was sort of robbed. So it's good to have that back, and it's sort of going back to those Adelaide Grand Prix years where Rundle Street would be closed off and there'd be merch stands and bars and things. So to tap into that is great, and I think that'd be massive. East End on a Friday night is usually pretty busy with late night shopping and people having drinks after work. So I think that'll be a great way to kick off the event, and it'll probably expose people to the event who don't know that it's on.
Yep.
And then they can know that it's on and turn up to Victoria Park on the Saturday and Sunday.
So the Victoria Park Sprint, so like you mentioned before, Adrian, it's not just old Formula One cars in there as well. So the categories are Formula One, Open Wheeler, Heritage Touring Cars, V8 Supercars, Improved Production, Historics, Ferrari, Time Attack, Porsche, Rennsport, Sports Prototypes, Modified JDM, Drift Masters, Historic Sports Vans, McLaren and Lamborghini. I think if you've got a car, it will fit into one of those categories. So it's going to be a huge, huge selection of different vehicles and something for everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's that was the highlight of the Motorsport Festival, is you'd walk around Victoria Park and while arguably the attraction was the F1 cars, I think it was always impressive to see the lineup of cars. You just look at some of those brands, McLaren, Lamborghini, Ferrari. They're sort of cars which turn heads in everyday traffic. So to have them on display, get up close, see them on track, it's that's what's great about the Motorsport Festival is it's not going to a museum where they're just stationary. Cars are meant to be driven fast and sort of heard, and to see them in person, see them up close and see them on track, it's just a great day out for people of all ages. And I think it's a pretty impressive lineup, and it'll be great to have it back.
That's one of the things that I liked about the Adelaide Motorsport Festival as well, is you're not stuck in a grandstand 40 or 50 metres away from the car. Sometimes you don't have, especially on the return road where they're going at walking pace, sometimes you don't even have anything between you and the cars. You might have a little bit of bunting at times, but you can just get so up close, see them go past, just hear that raw sound. It's great. I'm really looking forward to it coming back. Yeah,
and it's a point of difference to the Adelaide 500, which is your more traditional motorsport event where you're going to see a race and you're sort of in a grandstand or you're in a GA spot and sort of there's a schedule and things. The Adelaide Motorsport Festival has that sort of feeling where you can go wander, do your own thing, watch where you want to watch, go have a break under the trees in Victoria Park, and that's why Victoria Park's the perfect location for it, and sort of we've spoken about it with the Grand Prix and the Adelaide 500. It's just a perfect fit for these types of events, so it'll be great to be back and have the event seeing full capacity. I think it's so far so good.
And you've got the area where you can sit and relax with all of the food and drink, and then you have all of the display stands and the exhibitors and the clubs, and it's just very, very much looking forward to it. Just quickly on those categories as well, so the entry fee if you are wanting to enter to compete, so it includes 1 practice session on the Friday and up to 4 competitive sessions on both Saturday and Sunday. The entry fee is $995. I would love to enter. Obviously don't have the car, but if you're wanting to enter and compete, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable price, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. To get on track at that track, I think there's very few opportunities to race on an old Grand Prix track right in the heart of the city, and on the same bill as, Formula One drivers and Formula One cars and touring car, motorsport legends and things. So I think it's a bargain. As you say, you get track time on 3 days, practice session. I would, if I had a decent car, there's no Mazda category as far as I can see, so I'm ruled out. So, no, I think it's great, and I think it'll be well supported.
Yeah. So if you do want to enter, go to AdelaideMotorsportFestival.com.au and click on the entrance tab to register. I reckon that probably about sums up the Adelaide Motorsport Festival for now. There's obviously going to be a lot more announcements, but yeah, we're still a little bit away, so that's next year, week before Melbourne. Adelaide Motorsport Festival, Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of March. So one of the things that we're going to add in to the podcast along with Adrian's quiz is just a little funny or interesting story relating back to the Adelaide Grand Prix. So this year, with the Adelaide 500 being moved to December, and away from that fringe time in March, there's not many other big events. We did actually mention the other big event in town is the pageant. So that brings us on to the funny story from the Adelaide Grand Prix.
Yes, if people remember the Adelaide Grand Prix, it often clashed with the Christmas pageant. It was often the same weekend, which is very typical of Adelaide to have two major events on at the same time in the same city, just streets away. But actually, one of the early proposals for the first Adelaide Grand Prix in 1985 is to have the Christmas pageant run through the Grand Prix.
Actually run it on the track.
On the track during the sort of, weekend. Formula One weren't massive fans of that idea. You can understand why. Very different events and things, but that was one of the very first ideas of how to sort of, cross-promote Adelaide and what's going on in Adelaide with the Grand Prix. I don't think it would have worked, probably for the best that it didn't, but just one of those weird, funny stories. And, I remember as a kid being at the pageant and hearing the cars down the road, so incredible to think that they happen at the same time. Hopefully they don't with the Adelaide 500. I think they could benefit from their own weekends, so who knows? At least maybe Father Christmas can pop into the 500.
So there we have it. There was a proposal to run the Christmas pageant around the Adelaide Street Circuit at the time of the Adelaide Grand Prix. On to the answer to the quiz there, Adrian. So which F1 team won the first and the last Adelaide Grand Prix? So that's which F1 team won in 1985 and also the final in 1995? The answer is?
It's Williams. Okay. So Williams won with Keke Rosberg in 85 and then again in 95 with Damon Hill. And actually the same team finished second in both. Ligier finished second in 85 and 95. So there was some comparisons between the first and last, but we think of Williams now as, not so competitive, but back then they were one of the dominating teams, and, they sort of rounded out the Adelaide area with wins.
Bit of a change in management at Williams, but having said that, they're still around.
Yeah, pretty impressive, and it's great that, even though the Williams family isn't running it, that the name is still there, because it's that sort of, it has that heritage and that sort of respect. So hopefully it always continues, even if, the Williams family is no longer at the helm.
So that's the September podcast wrapped up. Hope you had some luck there in the quiz. We'll be back next month for another podcast. Adrian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening. Keep smiling and bye for now.